Okay, shall we go ahead and get started then? Welcome to our class on rebuilding Rails. We'll be taking a look at chapter 6 today, which is going to be covering requests and responses. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to post those over in chat or in Discord, and I will address those as we go through the class. Okay, so you might remember that the last class was going through a lot on models. It looks like this chapter is going to go a lot more into rack and requests and responses. Okay. So let's see here. We have the controller over here. Let's go ahead and skip over to code. And get that just a slight bit bigger for folks. Okay. So first thing we're going to be doing is looking into adding requests there. So we're going to require rack/request. And then we're going to add ourselves a method for dealing with requests here. So we have render. Let's go ahead and minimize that. Request seems to be good for right about here, let's say. Okay. And we are on about page 86 here of the book. Hello, hello, how are you doing today? Okay. So it looks like what we're doing is we're wrapping the environment. So if you have not seen the environment before, let's see here. I know that I had a view which had some of that in there. Version, nope, nope. I did have something which was giving us some of that. Nope, that was test over there. Anyway. So we can actually get a hold of the entirety of the request environment. And this would be things such as, say, where it came from, what attributes it got, the parameters, the HTTP version, the user agent, all that type of stuff. Oh, right. If you ever want something really fun to play with, take a look into user agents and why everything has Mozilla in it. That is a deep, deep rabbit hole. Anyway, so request method is creating a request object out of the environment hash, and this is something that Rack provides. If you want, we can probably output that a little bit later, and I need to remember that I named this environment up here. So the book will explicitly shorthand or kind of use shorter versions of these things because books have limited space, which fair enough. The problem is sometimes I rename them to be clear and then end up tripping myself, so one of these days I'll learn something. So for those of you who are not familiar with this convention right here, or equals is saying something is equal to if it does not exist already. Like let's say we have a variable a, which is equal to nil. A or equals to 1 will make a into 1. But let's say instead we had b is equal to 2, and then we did b or equal 3. Well, b is still going to be 2 because that's already been assigned. With instance variables, this is a very cheap way of making a cache, which is very potentially useful. Okay. So let's take a look into what we can do on the controller over here. So it's going on page 87 back over to our quotes controller for a show method. Okay, so we have that. Let's make sure this is still running. I think it is. Okay. All right, I'm going to need a new Chrome window over here. Let's go ahead and restart that. All right, bundle. Let's see here, quotes. Oh, right. I put a binding up pry there. Okay, show. What exactly did I do there? I have definitely broken something there. Okay, let's take a look into what we're after. We have action, we have controller, environment, development, etc. Got all that. We have the params there, yes. Okay. So we've done something weird with find here. Let's take a look at file model. And let's run that again, see what we get. Show ID equal 1, okay. Well, it looks like we're going on a debugging mission real quick. Okay, and that is in librulars. Let's quote that out for now. Okay. So we got that. Controller, action. Controller send show, okay. So let's go over to our controller over here, quotes controller show, render, quote. Yep. Okay, so that is subtle, but what it is I forgot to put a symbol on there. So it's trying to render literally this quote, which is what it's mad about. Okay, silly me. So we got that, okay. Let's make sure. And then I think it's mad about the params somewhere in here. So we got rulers, controller, rendered, render request, params, yes. We'll go ahead and put out the params whenever that happens to be there. And try that again. It's almost more fun when there's debugging stuff, because very rarely does stuff go right. Cannot load such file, Rubicop. Okay, so params is ID 1. So we got that. Don't need you, do need you. So we're going to put that in there. Throw that in there, reload that. Hit that, and do I have Brian the gem file? Fine. Okay, so params is there. What type of weird things it doing? Man, well, okay, I think that shell is about shot. Not sure what's got that mad. And the next kid managed to botch some stuff over there. Okay. Let's do that. Move that over there. Kill that, because for whatever reason that shell is being pesky. Okay, so we have that. We're in on find. We have our ID. Okay, now where are we at here? Mostly on the Y-run bundle exec while using rerun. I don't always trust it. It's a bad habit. So let's see here. Body yielded, non-string value nil. Okay. Render quote, quote. Why is it taking the question out of there? So we got that. Let's see here. Quote object that. Okay. Request params. And we'll add that just for the sake of it. Okay, so we definitely have the file model. We definitely have the quote. Body yielded non-string value nil. Okay, where's that render method? Let's take a look at that. And then the binding.pry was in fine, so that's in the file model. Let's take that out since we don't need that anymore. Okay, save that, take a look at controller. Go ahead and put that in there just so we have some additional debugging information. So rerun is only actually going to apply whenever it's done in our application instead of that. So let's take a look over here real quick. Okay, so that's definitely not nil. What do you mean by body yielded non-string value nil? That makes no sense. I mean, we definitely have a body. Let's double check to see if I've missed anything here. No, that all looks correct. Let's give this a try real quick. Okay. So file name is definitely correct. What else do we have here? Locals is also correct. Man, I really hate it when it does that. should I use something other than Puma then? Because Puma's trying to multi-thread this, which makes this additionally annoying. Let's try that. Maybe that'll give us less weird responses, but we'll see. Okay, so we still have the error. So we definitely have a response. Well, this is fascinating. Body yielded non-string value nil. And it's still the same issue. Okay, so that's in rack, lint, going through web break, going through server, going through everything else. Where exactly is this happening then? Man, this is fascinating. I mean, is this everything that's broken? Oops, not that, but a quote. Okay, well that scared it. Let's go ahead and take the binding.pry out of the rulers file just so that's not interfering with too much. I guess today we get a debugging route. Body yielded non-string value nil still. That was fascinating. You know what they say, if you can't beat them, just throw a bunch of print statements in there until eventually something pops up that looks promising. And if it doesn't, oh well, we tried. Okay. So I probably don't need that one anymore, and that is over in controller. So let's take that out just so that's not creating too much more noise. Ooh, there we go. That's interesting. What's nil over here? Why is that nil? Okay, so we have text is equal to nil. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so this is subtle. This I deserve. Okay, so I was trying to be clever. The reason that we have this is that we have controller.send action, and in one of these controller actions, like let's say controller, we have render quote object this, but there was a question last time, which is, okay, how do I do an implicit render of this? Which is great, but we won't get the result out there. So what we could say instead is render result is equal to this, because this happens to return nil. So that should fix it. Okay. So this is why you don't try and be too clever on books like this, because sometimes you get some type of weird kind of esoteric errors, and I think that should fix it. But hey, fascinating debugging little aspect here. Bonus period. Okay. Ha. Okay. Yep, that's what it was. Quote 1, quote 2. Okay. So just to make sure people understand exactly how the world we footgun this thing, what it was before is that we did not have render result here. So if we undo this real quick, this is what we had, which means this line is effectively returning nil, which is why it says nil body, which is why I caught it as soon as we put response in here, and then it said this right here for text is nil. That is subtle, but that is completely on me. Okay, let's put that back real quick because I actually do want that. Save that. Okay, now we can continue on the chapter. Anyway, fascinating little detour in debugging. Let's see here. So we go back over to show. We are then taking a look at the user agent. So we got that. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with what I'm doing here specifically, I've mentioned this in a few of the previous chapters, but let's say we had a hash, we could do over here A, B, because we defined these earlier. What that is a shorthand hash syntax, which allows you to have a key which matches the value if they're the same name. So what we're doing here is I changed quote to obj, which is what the controller is the view is expecting, and user agent is user agent over here. So if we save that, we have user agent, and if we go over to the quote HTML ERB over here, we can sneak that in here. Debugging things are always fascinating sometimes. Nope, that one was 100% self-inflicted. Okay. Yeah, if you ever want a really deep rabbit hole, as I mentioned before, why exactly is everything Mozilla 5.0 with WebKit and all this other stuff like that and Safari? There's a really deep rabbit hole on that. I'll post some links sometime later on that because I need to find that article myself. But there's some funny stories there. Anyway, back to the book. So we have requests. We can get some of the additional data from there. And we can kind of play with that information. Great. Okay, so we can do request, and now we're looking at responses. Okay, so that would go back over in Ruler's controller. So we'll make a response method. I'm just going to leave those little debugging things in there because that's useful. Okay, and response takes text, status, headers. And we are on page 89 and page 90. Okay, and then we'll explain what exactly this is doing in a second. I am effectively copying the code directly out of the book. right. Another fun thing you can do in Ruby 3, I want to say 3.1 plus, is you can use dot 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 here instead, which is pass every single one of these arguments as is right into this other thing. Args is a little bit more explicit though, so we'll keep that. Okay, so if we go back over to rulers, this will be in the call method. Let's line break these real quick. White space is free. We should use that liberally. We can put our little tap right there as well. Oops, missed one. Okay, there are a little bit changes we'll have to do on that. Because we're using response instead of using that. Okay, so it wants us to go to quotes controller instead of using that. We're going to use render response. Since we're changing a bunch of stuff over here, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the exercises go into a little bit more detail, which kind of supersede a lot of the stuff that I was doing with automatic reloading in the last section. So instead of trying to hotwire that, I'm going to open it up to questions real quick. So anyone curious about anything before we go too much further? While you're thinking about those, I'm reading through these exercises just to see what we're up to. Yep, I'm going to leave those alone because we managed to work ourselves into a slightly interesting situation. I might write up on that more later, but the way that we did that without the request object might be interesting later, and I'll have to think about how I want to phrase that one. Well, anyway, we got a bonus little debugging chapter as well as a funny little thing up here. But yes, make sure to always know what in the world your code is doing. I should probably have tests for some of this to make sure that it was working as expected, but so it goes. Let's see here. Do we want to cover anything else today? I mean, next time we're going to be going a lot into SQLite and modeling and some other things like that, so that one's going to go deep, and I can see a lot of additional stuff going on there. But before that, I don't think there's too much more we can cover on this one. So we'll give another chance. If anyone has any questions, anything we want to cover, we can take a look into that. Otherwise, we can call it a day. Okay, well, with that said, we can go ahead and call it a day on this, wrap things up. And if you do have any questions, again, feel free to join us over on Discord. We're over on rubylearning.dev. You can find links to any of the social media that we're on or anything else like that. We'd be happy to help you with anything else, and we can go from there. Well, have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next time.